So it means there's a crack somewhere.
Well, yeah. Sometimes it's just because it's a layered material. Sometimes it's just a sliver of slate. Like here it is, right here, right up top here. That's what's causing it to not ring sound. But I can tell there's enough ring in that so that there's something minor, and that's what it is. So I'd use that slate. This one here. There's definitely something wrong, so you look it over. Oh, this one I already did. I was talking to someone earlier about it. This one is split right down the middle this way. Someone asked me about the age of the material being cut. Was that you? Someone asked me about the age of the slate, if it gets harder to cut as it gets older. When it comes out of the ground, it comes out like this is a 8.5 by 11 slate. So this would have been a block of slate, 11 inches tall, 8.5 wide. And they take a 3-inch chisel and they just chisel it off in layers like this. So this is what the block would have looked like. And that question was, does this stuff get harder to cut when I'm cutting on my steak as it gets older? And the answer was no. But when it comes out of the ground, it has to be cut and split immediately. And because if you let the air get to the slate, when you go to cut it, it'll go off in odd angles and it can't be done. When you go to split it, I mean. So,
moisture content in it or something?
Well, there's several different ways. I know one way is they drill. It's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen a granite quarry where they just into the wall like this. Well, they do the same thing with the slate. They'll drill in. And they use, like this quarry up in Quebec, North Country black slate. This is the product here. And what they do is they drill in and then they use wire cutters. And they just literally, it's a wire that circulates around. They cut the blocks out. Then I went to Newfoundland and visited their quarry. This is their slate. This is really nice stuff. Pretty. And they just walk up to the wall with a backhoe and pound it, and down comes the slab, and into the mill it goes. But they were state of the art. What they did was they had a swimming pool inside their facility. I mean, a massive, massive pond, a concrete pond. They would take the stone and just blast as much of it out of the quarry as they could, and get it cut to sizes that were typically ordered. And there would be blocks about this big, huge, heavy blocks. We'll just drop them in the pond. And then later, remember I said you had to be green? That would keep the slate green. And then later in the winter, up there in Newfoundland, I mean, there's so much to do in the winter.
They hold 11 months of that.
Yeah. So 1 month they'd get the stuff out of the ground, and then the other 11 they'd put it in the pond and pull it out. But they had this thing going on. You remember they shut the fisheries down up there, the cod fishing and everything? So the government came in and they set up this quarry with somebody, I don't know who it was, a private developer, and the two of them got this business going, and they were producing that beautiful, beautiful stone. And there was some kind of a falling out, and the whole place just shut down. And all those workers that were fishermen that were then working slate, they all lost their jobs. I don't know what's going on up there now. Ooh. No, it was, I mean, that was back, had been 15 to 20 years ago.
Fishing let out in the 70s.
Yeah, but I started my business in '83, and it was like 6 or 7 years later that I went up there. Now, it may have been maybe in the late '70s.
I wasn't laughing at that, but I mean, you could tell it was just going downhill.
But I don't know, it was shortly after that the whole thing went sour. And it was too bad because that's, as you can see, it's a beautiful stone. So where was I? I was sleeping.
So does this come from a very moist area?
Not necessarily. Monson isn't. No.
But the water just helps to...
Well, evidently, yeah, it's the oxygen. It's the oxygen that destroys the sliceability of the slate. So by taking it out of the ground and putting it immediately in the water, it keeps the oxygen off.
I think I may have answered my own question.
What's that?
What are you gaining by tearing that flashing in the corner?
This right here?
Yeah. As opposed to running one piece all the way down.
Well, if water was to leak in on top of this flashing, it would run out onto this slate and continue down the roof. If it penetrated this flashing, this slate, hit that flashing and run back out. It's a feathering. If you put one continuous flashing down there and you get a massive amount of water, it can actually migrate under the slate and into the structure.
The other thing that is occurring because of that is every penetration of the flashing, when that nail is holding down, is covered. It's never going to be exposed to it.
That's right. Yeah. And generally the slate doesn't get nailed through the flashing, but I made my flashings too big because there was a convenient size coming out of the sheet that I had. Usually, you see the coverage I have here? This one is up here. There's no need for that flashing to be way up here. It only needs a 3-inch coverage. So this one could actually come down to here. That one could be smaller, and then when I nail my slate through, it won't go through the slate. Slate won't go through the flashing. In this case, they're so big, it doesn't really matter.
When you put your flashing up, do you make sure, do you put it right on the tar paper? Because tar paper, or any bituminous material, will cause holes in the copper. You know that?
No.
Bituminous, like tar paper, you should have something between it and the copper.
Typically, when we do larger amounts of copper, we use a rosin-sized paper between the two.
Right.
Yeah.
But even here, you would be ruining that.
Now, is that with from underneath, or is that when you have
Any connection between copper and bituminous, which is basically tar paper, or if you get that liquid roofing material to close up a leak, you're going to have a big old hole in that.
right? But is that with the presence of moisture?
No, just sitting there.
Thanks.
Because I've torn apart.
Guys that did my barn roofs
Oh no.
tried to, they were going to repair the copper valleys.
Yeah. They use the top.
They used that sticky stuff.
Grab a hold of that nail. Grab it. I'll tap it out, but I'm not going to go all the way with it.
Right here, yep.
And then I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to grab that side. Now I'm going to walk it out back and forth. And I have both nails, which is very important because if they broke off and I went to put a new slate in, I hit the stubs, it wouldn't go. Stubs of the nails. Now I go find a replacement slate.
Right, there it is.
Good, so I'll use this one. Put it in upside down. Make sure it's going to go. Make sure there's no felt in the way because the felt is layered.
Right.
Make sure there's no broken nails or anything. I know it's good. I mark where the end, the butt wants to be. And I pull it back out.
Hard to shoot.
This is a slate hanger. And what I do is I double up on the copper, bend it over the thickness of the slate, just a little shy of the thickness, and I put that right where the mark is. I don't use it.
Even for a 30 ounce, right?
Yeah. And then what I would do is I would take a small amount of roofing cement and I would adhere it to the slate, and then I'd support the. I always carry 2 of these. Just lift those slate up a little bit so this fits in nice and easy, and I hold it up off the cement as long as I possibly can, and I drop it into place, and then I'll push it down into the cement so it seats nice and clean. Pull those out. And then I take that hanger and I form it into the shadow line of that slate. And that way if snow and ice comes over, it doesn't hit that. And that's how we do it.
If you got cement under that, and that was cracked again, you got to remove it. It'll come out.
Yeah, the cement that we use is it's called Bulldog roof cement, and it's flexible cement. So later on, you go in there. It's a lot of work. I mean, you got to take that and drive it up in there, and you can break the cement apart and get the slate out. Then you can use a chisel, and you can clean the back of the slate off. Like these, if this slate breaks again, you take that out. These two, just take a chisel and clean that cement off, and these are still valuable slate.
And these are the nails you pulled out. You said you don't want them to shear off.
You don't want them to shear off. You want to. Did you see how I walked it out back and forth? If you
just want to work them out so that they don't hang up.
Exactly. If you hook onto one of them, just start pounding away, the other one will still stay, and you're apt to shear that off because it's copper as well as we saw. Then what's going to happen is you're going to have this. It'll start to pull out, but then it'll shear off, and you'll have that stub in there. When you go to slide that other slate in, you're going to hit that. And then once you get that slate out, you want to take your rip iron and just feel around in there and make sure there's nothing else in there. Because I don't know if you just heard me mention, but see right here the layer of slate, layer of felt.
Yeah.
Well, if we were making a repair right here, you slid up and hit that, it'd give you nightmares trying to get past that.
So what do you use? Like, just slide something up on top of it, and then slide something up on top of that?
Felt, yeah. What you do is you feel around, and then you realize that you're at a felt line, which happens every 3 feet, so it's very likely. You just slide this up on top, get it ridden on top of the felt,
and then slide the like a shoehorn.
Exactly, like a shoehorn. It doesn't stay that color.
It's a weathering process.
Yeah.
I forget now. I'll have to look again. Greenstone Slate Company is where I've gotten some before.
Yeah.
So
I don't like the black from Vermont because of the changing colors that occur. You don't know what you're going to get. So your customer sees this product like, I have these samples here, and that's what they go by, a sample board. And they like it. You install it, and then all of a sudden it starts going crazy once the oxygen gets to it.
He actually brings black slate in from Turkey or somewhere.
I haven't heard very good reports about it. The only non-domestic slate I'll use is that North Country Black. That's from Quebec. It's just 12 miles from Fort Kennedy.
Isn't it? Brings slate from Turkey.
That's like bringing
I was up there to get my slate. He's got all kinds of slate to get some.
Right, you can't. It's very heavy. You can't lift it, but as far as working,
You don't need it. You don't want to. That's it. And go around to here.
Metal roofing on the house on Sunset. The owner said that copper was really expensive. It was about 6 years ago, this sheet metal roof. He said, Dad, you should put copper in this.
Put the starter now. And then take our next one, the sheet, 24 inches wide, and we'll taper the sheet from 0 to 1/8 of an inch on both sides. And then our scratches that we use to make our standing seams are all tapered, so that when we put our first one on, we slide our second one on, it just fits perfectly inside there, and the standing seams snap right into place on the other one, and then so on and so forth. So we have starter panels, tapered panels, and finished panels.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of work, but
once you got a system.
shearing the two panels is pretty quick. And then the scratches, what we do is we'll have one guy on the bottom, and all he has to worry about is tapered scratches. And then one guy on the top, and all he has to worry about is the regular scratches. And I'll show you what I mean. If I needed to mark 1 inch across here, I would measure this, cut in. It's kind of like you guys must use scribes. So if that was 1 inch, you just take this and you scratch it on there.
I guess
And there's 1 inch ready to be bent.
Nice.
So when we're doing standing seams, you have a 1 inch standing seam plus a 1/4 inch bend over. And then your female end that marries up to that is 1 inch standing seam, 3/16, and then 5/16, and then 1/4 inch under. So you have a series of scratches. You're going to make 3 scratches on the female side, 2 scratches on the male side, and they interlock into each other, and then roll over again for what's called a double lock standing seam. So what I was just explaining to him is, if you think about it, if you do the same size scratch top and bottom, when you go to marry the sheets together, you have your first sheet, you slide your second one in, they're the exact same size, so they won't. So we taper it all. So the panels are actually all tapered, very small amount, but they just, when you slide them into place, they almost suction in place. It's really cool. It makes a beautiful roof system. It's all done by hand with 3-inch pliers, the first stage, and then we use a rubber mallet and knock it over just part way. It only takes a second to come down the run. And then we have a foot seamer. It's about 18 inches long. The handle stands up like this, and you just hit it with your foot, and it seams it all the way down. Someone was asking about weight versus asphalt shingles. Well, as far as installation, like this roof here, you can see how long this is taking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's asphalt shingles. I don't know. I guess I don't do it, but I guess on a really good day you could get 7 or 8 square down, and probably a typical day is 4.5 or 5.5, maybe something like that. With slate, it's well, this is small, so it would take a long time to do this. But a slate like that is a square per day per man. Wood shingle, is it? Yeah. 1 square per day per minute. And then with that double lock standing seam, 3 men, 30-hour day, 30 hours, 3 men, 10-hour day, can break up 1 case of copper, which is 67 sheets. And then installation is on a good day with not any obstructions. A pretty simple roof like that right there. 2 men could probably get in 4 square a day. Getting back to that scrap copper, now what you do with the valleys, you clip it off. When you're working on a slate roof, if you look right here, you have 3 layers of slate, and they're directly bedded to the roof deck. In here, there's a gap. So if you can put your weight right there on the slate and your toe down here, you'll have a tendency to not break them. These get put about a foot apart.
On a new roof, is there a percentage of breakage you've got to take into consideration? We've got to go back and recheck the roof?
What happens is when we're doing our work, we you saw the brackets, we talked about those. We double plank them, and then we have we make these ladders out of 2x4s, and but they're just like regular aluminum ladders, only they're made out of 2x4s with rungs and everything. And we have all these varying sizes depending on how far apart we put our brackets. And how far we put our brackets is about how far a guy can reach up the roof. And then so we slate our way up, bracket across. I explained how the bracket covers a lot of slate, so it tends not to break them. And we plank that off, and then we put a ladder up and go up. And we never touch any slate. And then you just do the whole process again. So you plank your way up and ladder your way up the roof. And then when we clean down, we take the brackets off. The only place the slate has been touched, other than our knees and toes, is right where the bracket is. And we use our prick punch, and we lift each one of the slate all the way down and test each one, make sure they're not broken. We did, I'll give you an example. We did the cathedral in Portland. It was 75 square slate, and we never had a broken slate on the entire church. And that was, I don't know, it was at least 7 or 8 years ago, and it hasn't been a repair to make yet. we bid on a job in Fort Kent for the Catholic Church. We do a lot of work for the Catholic Church. So they asked us to bid a job up there, and I'm like, oh man, that's a long way to go. I didn't want to do it. But they had good luck with them, and they like us, so we did. We bid on the job, and we lost it by a lot of money. It was like $50,000. I got a call 1 year later from the superintendent of construction, and he says, is it unusual to have about 75 slate, 1 year, about 75 slate fall off the roof? And I said, yeah, that's wicked unusual. He said, well, the contractor says it's called sheds. What sheds are worker-related slate repairs. Yeah. And they generally need to be done within a year or two, and then after 2 years, there shouldn't be any more sheds. So he had 75 sheds on one side of the building, and he wanted to know if I'd go up and take a look at it. I said, no, I'm not going up. There's no forgiveness in the nail. Once that goes in, you can't get them back out.
Yeah, you'd never be able to replace
it. And so if you happen to go in too tight and put stress on the slate, you've ruined the slate. Also, you want... I lost my train of thought.
They showed up.
You want the slate to be able to move, so ring shanks are too rugged, too tight. Oh, no, my train of thought was, if you have to pull the nail out, remember I was showing the repair?
Oh, right, that's not going to
ring shank will not come out, it'll shear in half, and then you'll have that stub there. And if you're pulling an old roof with hand cut nails, cut iron nails, and those will shear off too. But you just take your rip iron and you wiggle it around in there and you'll work it out. But with these guys, they don't work out. It's there.
So what you need to do is get a good auctioneer. You look at it, he'll have places in it. So just need to pay what they did.
Carries. Yeah. Well, we were just talking about that earlier too. Even the 30-pound they carry is actually 22-pound.
30-pound nominal.
Yeah, we get it from Beacon Sales. Get the. It's an AFTM rated cup. Is what it is. And it's a true 30-pound per square. When we're doing a job, we cull our slate. I don't know if you noticed, but all these pieces here I cut were on slate that were damaged on the side. Now what I did is I grabbed a bunch of this. As I was culling through my slate, these were all pieces that can't be used. This portion of it can't be used, so they're valley slate. So what I'll do is I'll try to find a size that'll fit.
They're friends of Victor's from church. People who
This is a trick my grandfather. I never knew my grandfather. He died before I was born. You ever seen a slate valley and the slate look like that? Jagged up the valley?
Yeah.
What you do is you get the bottom of your slate driven across against your left slate. You take your nail, and as you pounded it in, you just pound it that way, nice and easy. And then you take this one and you go the opposite direction, pound it that way. You spring load the slate so it won't move. And if it does move, it wants to go back. Here happens to be broke off, but the other thing he would do, and you won't see this in a book or anything, is he would clip his slate corner like that. So as you're coming in, you clip that like that. And the reason why is this slate happens to stop proud of the middle of the valley, but if it came all the way into here like this, you can get snow and ice migrating in there and grabbing it and snapping it off, or riding the slate back like that. So if you clip the corner, it doesn't allow that to happen. So going 4.5 inches. I got no more. So what's really happening?
Did you just come up for the weekend?
I mean, you want me to cut the tops of these? Or can I just
Honestly,
I'd like to see a.
Sean wants to use it on
What?
I'd like to see a slate ridge because I tried to do it once and it was difficult.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll put one more valley slate in.
I think my problem was that I had pre-punch slate, and I felt like the top row needed to be punched differently, basically. And so that's where my
I'll tell you what.
Where my issue was.
I'll show you how to do a slate hip here. I'll show you how to do it. I can't do the whole thing.
Right. No.
And I'll explain why. Let me just.
Who knows, right?
I did something that's not good.
We're looking forward to
it. The line's gone. The other thing is we strike our lines with chalk lines and use chalk lines. You don't want to have scratch lines like that on your copper. I did that very lightly. But if you have too heavy of a scratch line, water osmosis will occur. It'll ride down that line and it'll wear the copper out prematurely. Linear corrosion, I think it's called. So you want to try to avoid doing that.
I have seen it since. No. My older brothers are doing it. Yeah, I've met him before. I've known him before. More experience. Yeah.
Wow, not much area, huh?
No.
I'm seeing some guys hold it on the leg and punch it.
Yeah, you can do that. You can't with this though. It's too small.
It's too small.
Yeah, you'd break it. I was doing that earlier for a few slates. That's why my pants are dirty. You know what happens when you're doing salvage work and you do that? You get home that night and your leg's all black underneath from the slate dust going through.
You like those nails okay? Nailing that high on the slate?
Yep.
For that little piece, yeah.
Well, what else am I going to do? I can't nail through the copper.
Right.
So that's what it is. A trick I was showing about the spring-loaded nails, you don't have to do it when you can spread them like that. Is that the line?
What would happen if you did that one score? Not you break it short and then you go like
There's
this.
too much bulk out here, and you'll cause the slate. You want to get some of that bulk out of the way. Another thing, when you're cutting a valley, you see how it comes to a point? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to square away from it and get some of that bulk away from the point.
Okay.
Because the point is going to want to break too, especially with other stuff. This stuff here is pretty forgivable.
Yeah.
Pretty good to cut, I mean.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, let me pull this in, then we'll do a. You put a board there for me. Got no nail hole. Migrate it towards the left. Come down this way. That keeps that point tight. Yeah. Now you wanted to see a hip line. So we have the slate coming up, and then what we do.
So on your ridge right there, you have slate hanging over the edge. So you would have had to cut that off, right?
Yeah. We would have cut it off and everything. I'm just I was trying to get a valley. I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to show some of the components of the roof system. And it's good that you asked this. This is kind of neat. What we do determine what size hip line you want. Like a 5-inch or 6-inch coverage. We'll go with a 5-inch coverage. All right. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark 5.5 on the bottom, and let me think a second. These are small slate. We want to taper the ridge, so I'm going to go with 5 on top and see how that works. All right. So this is my left slate hip, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the right. So right, 5.5.
More like cedar.
Is that what I said?
5.5.
5.5 to 5.
Yeah.
And you cut these on the face. Remember, I've been doing everything on the back side. These get cut on the face. That's actually too much taper, but we'll go and see how it goes.
So the slate company had sold me pre-cut, pre-punch.
Were they cut on the face?
I don't.
They weren't.
They weren't. I don't think. No.
Well, you know what? What they told you and what you had would work. I'm just going to show you something neater, in my opinion. Right, yeah. So there's my slate.
I'm sure it's probably better.
This is the part that's going to need the nail holes. And so you want 3 nail holes. And the reason you want 3 is because you're nailing into a strap-in. You have to. So what happens is you put you put a strap-in on, bring your slate up to the strapping, and then you want to put like a 30-pound felt or an ice and water shield membrane over the top for watertight integrity. And then so I can get a bearing pattern One thing nice about slate hips is that, in my trade, we're always looking for shop work on rainy days. This is great shop work. The guy cut slate hips all day long.
All that great stuff that I got. It's rainy days.
Well, when you're on the roof, you let all that waste fall down the roof?
No, we have 5-gallon buckets. Actually, you see the felt under here? We always have felt. And you just dump it on the felt, take the felt and dump it into a 5-gallon bucket. Keep the roof jobs like clean. This is terrible. Pick up out of a rose garden. Yeah, my tape is a little too much for this size slate. I'm sorry about that, but you'll get the gist of it. So keep in mind that we're all slated up. We have a wooden strapping ridge on here, and what we do is we cut the strapping on a miter, and we have a perfectly clean line, and that's actually our chalk line. So you take the slate, and you have a starter slate like I have here to kick this thing up, and you bring up this one to it. If the guy cutting had cut it straighter, it'd be good. And then you remember I was just showing you the spring-loaded nails? Well, you do the same thing. This nail goes up, and you nail it this way. And this nail goes the other way.
That's why you cut them off the face, is to make that miter nice and tight.
Exactly.
Undercut it.
And then keep in mind, this would be kicked up. And this one would be too. Now, what we do is we take black roofing cement and we take a trowel and we burn the trowel over our fire pot. By the way, I'm not going to solder anymore. I'm going to shut that off. We'll take roofs and cement and we'll pull the cement into that joint like that. And then, because the trowel was clean and we have a sharp edge here, the roof and cement does not come onto the side. And we'll take this slate and we'll put it into the cement like this and we'll spin it up so that this side picks cement up and this side pushes it down. And then we bring the two together like that. And we, again, with the spring-loaded nails. And this slate under here is just to kick it up. It would be up right there.
But you're nailing through slates beneath it.
No, because we have strapping on here. In our roof system, the strapping comes right to here. About a 2.5 inch strapping or so. Okay. And our slate comes up to here, so we have 3 inches of coverage. Gotcha. Okay.
That was actually a tricky thing to figure out though, because you got to lay your forces out to come out just right on the ridge.
Well, you know,
and if you're on an old building and it's a slopey ridge, curvy ridge, it's tricky.
You know, you guys have done wood shingling, you have story poles. Yeah. We kind of do the same thing. You know, you need 4.5 inches of coverage because we're going 4.5 inch to weather. Right. So we would want a 4.5 inch copper ridge, or in this case I went 5.5, but that's because we have strapping on here we got to compensate for. So you lay your slate out like a story pole, and you always go strong head lap. So if instead of stretching your courses, you shrink them up and get a tighter roof. And so then your next one, okay, so now that cement was sandwiched down in, and what happens is a little bit comes out through. So now you put your next slate on, always go with one side. Now the fact that I tapered it, see, this is 5.5 inches down, this is only 5 inches down. Now what happens is that slate comes out perfectly. I actually did it right, guys. So now this slate gets put on.
I recall that actually my tails were hanging down.
Yeah, it's because they were all one even size, right?
Yeah.
Take the roof and cement, you pile it on there, slate broke. All right, just take it out, replace it. Put this slate on, spin it like that, swoosh that stuff up in there, and then just keep going across like that.
That's a nice joint there.
So no copper in between.
Well, you have a mitered.
I put a step.
Yeah, you can do that. You have a mitered wooden hip. You put the membrane over it. Whether you use ice, I like to use ice and water shield. There's, you get these guys that are sticking it all over the entire houses. I don't know what that's doing to the house. Yeah. Well, it's a great product, but right here, I mean, I literally gift wrapped this. You can't get 30-pound felt to do this as tight as this. I'm not making the house unbreathable.
I've been using that triplex material like that.
That stuff's not bad. Although it's not. The other thing, someone was asking me earlier about doing a slate roof on a vertically sheathed barn where the sheathing was a little wavy, and if you go and put triplex on that, there's no forgiveness in the felt. But if you put this stuff down, it kind of helps level it out. So, what are we talking about? Oh, the butane. So you got your strap and you put that ice and water shield on, or a 30-pound felt over that, and then you use the cement. And what the cement does is it secures the slate nice and tight. Any water gets in, it just rides back out. The only thing wrong with doing this, the only thing about doing this is you can't do it and then clean down and go home. You've got to come back the next day, because what happens is inevitably you get some slate that oozes out. I mean, some roofing cement. And you just come back the next day and you take a knife and you just go like that, and it shears the cement off and nice and clean.
Can slate be adapted to a vented ridge?
Actually, yeah. We everything I'm describing right here, we did on a project, and we put. It was architect specified. Yeah. Put a roll vent on. Yes. Then we did the strapping detail we were just talking about, only we used a pine saddle board, mitered together, down over. Yep. And then we put a copper flashing over the butt end of that, so you didn't see wood, you saw copper. And everything else was copper on the building as well.
Not too bulky?
It's definitely a shadow line. It's definitely a heavy shadow line up there, but it's effective. Yep. And then we put the saddle, just like you see in here, covering the pine. Mm-hmm. The only problem is you got to have that copper or something. You got to, unless you want to go up and paint with pine or let it weather or whatever. But what we did is we clad the edges, that 3/4 inch edge of the pine with.
Well, that's what I do with my ridges myself.
Yeah.
I cover it with copper.
Yeah.
I find that copper makes wooden shingles last almost twice as long. The leaching from the copper. It's amazing.
Oh, hey.
You gonna show us how to strip, or otherwise this is gonna be permanent?
Listen, the Bruins are going to be starting here pretty soon. Yeah, I just threw that in there. I'm just forcing it around copper for the vision aid. This is a muriatic acid. We kill it with it, take those things, throw it in, and it's the glasses so it's not too rugged. You can use that as a flux. This stuff here, Johnson's flux sauce is really good. First, you get it. It's a really good product. The flux, what? Huh? The flux, what happens now? Much means waste till it out.
So you use the acid to clean your iron?
The irons, yeah. What it does is it cleans the iron so you can control the solder. I'm going to actually solder this upright, and you can just sweat it, just like a plumber does with a torch. And this is sufficient. Matter of fact, this is actually all hidden, but I'll just show you how to do an upright. It's kind of neat. You want your iron to be about the color of the yeah. You don't like them burnt? Yeah. It's cool brown. Yeah. So in a case like this, you're going to put a wood still on top of this. You don't really want to build it up with too much solder. That right there is more than sufficient. I can see it sweated all the way through. Out here, you can see this from outside. You can fill this up and make a nice series of places across. Kind of like there.
So you're really just painting the surface a little bit there.
Painting, yeah, but
50 years old. We're just sweating copper gas.
And it burned down?
Burn the roof off the building.
Yeah. They didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, that's a good solder joke though. It isn't going to come apart. I'm putting way too much heat to it. I'm going to do it again. 475 degrees to get this copper melted to 1600. That was way too much heat.